Treasures in and around Riggisberg. Part 1. Switzerland is a very small country, and like a buried treasure chest, it is filled with many jewels. Riggisberg, situated between Bern and Thun, is one of Switzerland's most beautiful treasures and has 2,500 residents. Off the main road, on a topography that can be likened to a saddle, it is a meeting point for weather coming from the four directions. It is the highest point between the Gurbetal Valley lying between Thun and Bern in the east, and Schwarzenberg and Freiburg in the west. It is the lowest point between the Swiss Alps in the south and the foothills in the north. Because of this, the weather and the clouds they bring change from hour to hour, displaying their variety and beauty in all seasons. The weather is not the only thing that meets in Riggisberg. Tourists and pilgrims who have passed by on their way to pay homage to Apostle St. James, who is claimed to be buried in Spain, have also met here and left their mark. Old buildings, trees, and boulders dot the landscape like jewels scattered on the ground waiting to be found. Monasteries where the pilgrims stayed to recuperate, and churches where they prayed for strength to continue their pilgrimage have survived the ravages of time. So have castles and some buildings where the local privileged lived. Foreign boulders called erratics have been dropped off by glaciers that have crossed the area millions of years ago. Rudolf von Tafel, born in 1866 and died in 1934, is one of the famous people who have visited Riggisberg and left their mark in the area. He was a well-known writer who wrote in the Bernese Dialect. He was born to a wealthy Bernese family. He became a lawyer, a conservative politician, a journalist, a writer, and a poet. He wrote using the local dialect about the local country folk, leaving us colorful pictures of how they lived. Near Riggisberg, there is a memorial to him high above the Gurbetal Valley with a wonderful viewpoint of the Swiss Alps. The Bernese dialect that the locals in Riggisberg speak sounds just as beautiful as the scenery looks. The locals are very proud of their dialect, and many locals challenge foreigners to twist their tongues by attempting to say certain phrases. Just like in English, internal rhymes like lovey-dovey, honey bunny, and sweetie pie are used to convey affection. Bernese dialect uses terms of endearment and diminutive forms to express smallness, making the language sound very poetic and childlike. Just like Y's and IE's are added to English words and names to convey smallness and affection, like doggy and Andy, Le's are added to Swiss German words and names like Hundali and Trudali for the same reason. Bernese dialect, like the many similar Swiss German dialects of other regions, is very melodic compared to the harsh sounding guttural German. Like in Jamaican, where some words are shortened by removing the vowels A, E, I, O, U, and other words are drawn out by adding vowels to them, the language becomes a tongue twister to speak, but a delight to listen to. Like Jamaican, Swiss dialect is mainly a spoken language, and when written as poems and private letters and SMS texts, it is written phonetically. This is because the dialect is very regional and many versions exist. The following phrases demonstrate the difference between German and the Bernese dialect.
Guten Tag.
Hallo zusammen, grüß dich.
Manchmal gehen wir mit jemandem in eine kleine Kirche,
Manchmal gehen wir jemandem ins kleine Kirchli,
etwa 3016 Meter über dem Meer.
etwa 3016 Meter über dem Meer.
Am Montag und Dienstag frühstücken wir.
Am Montag und Dienstag tun wir das Morgeln.
Eben etwas nicht zu teures.
Etwas nicht zu teures.
Wir essen Karotten und Kartoffeln, trinken Weißwein oder ein Glas Bier.
Wir essen Rüebli und Herdöpfel, trinken weissen Wein oder eine Stange.
Nicht wahr? Guten Appetit.
Gell? Einen guten.
Ich arbeite gern und arbeite hart.
Ich arbeite und krampfe gern.
Liegen wir an die Sonne hier oder gehen wir mit dem Motorrad
Sündeln wir da oder gehen wir mit dem Töff
oder laufen mit 9 bis 10 Kilometer
oder rennen wir 9 bis 10 Kilometer
und spielen.
und Gameweller.
Siehe, ich will nicht mehr dabei sein.
Ich will einmal nicht mehr dabei sein.
Vielen Dank,
Merci vielmal.
sagt mir einmal Küchenschränklein.
Sag es mal Küchenkästchen.
Ich liebe dich.
Ich habe dich gern.
Over the 900 years life of Riggisberg, many tourists have passed through and admired its beauty. St. James Way, called Jakobsweg, is a network of trails throughout Europe used by pilgrims on their pilgrimage to the grave of Apostle James in Santiago, Spain. They were led to believe that on completion of their pilgrimage, their sins would be forgiven. Many pilgrims who passed through Switzerland used the route referred to as the Upper Route, which started from a settlement at Brunig high above the Lake of Thun. With all-weather hats and fur coats protecting them from cold and rain, and long walking sticks protecting them from threatening animals, they made their way over to Riggisberg Church, built 800 years ago. There they prayed before reaching the renowned monastery at Riggisberg. Built 900 years ago, the monastery at Riggisberg was where the pilgrims who could afford to stay there wined and dined and regained their strength. The monks there were renowned and sought-after lumberjacks who cleared the lands around the area of the dense forests and provided settlers cleared fields for farming and timber for building their barns and houses. Once they were mentally and physically recuperated, or their budgets were drained, the pilgrims continued over Freiburg and on to Lake Geneva. At the end of their journey, in the bay not far from Santiago, they looked for shells as proof of their successful completed pilgrimage. The Catholic monastery was abandoned 400 years later during the time of Reformation. It is thought by some that there was a 4-kilometer tunnel going through the limestone rocks that ended in caves through the Pfefferloch found on the cliffs over Kaufdorf.